y'all enjoy dinner? That's good, wasn't it? All right. Well, let's start with prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the food that you gave us, and Lord, we ask that it will nourish our bodies through the rest of this afternoon. We thank you for good, healthy food. We ask as we look at this topic this afternoon that you can help us better understand how to take care of our bodies. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. This morning I talked about the fella from England at the airport, and he was talking about the Rolls Royce. And he talked about if you don't take care of it, if you treat it like a clunker, you're going to have a clunker. And it gave me the thought, well, why don't we do a human manual? There's a manual in our car. It tells us what size tires it's allowed, what spectrum or what scope you can put. It tells you what kind of fuel you need to put in that engine. It tells you how often the oil needs changed. It tells you how to take care of that vehicle. Well, what if we do that for the human body? Let's check this clicker here. Well, let's step over here and we'll just help it along. So we look at the Rolls Royce, and this is the platinum solid gold, and if you bought that car, it would be $8.5 million. Would you say that's an expensive car? Would you want a manual for that? If you had the car, would you want a manual for it? Yes. Let's say that you drove it for someone. Would you want to have a manual if you had to take care of it? Absolutely. Do our bodies belong to us? So who does it belong to? So we're taking care of it for somebody, right? So we need a manual to take care of his body. It's the same thing. How would you like to have a fender bender with that one? Has anyone ever seen that car before? Do they have them here in Atlanta? The Bugattis? Okay, so what do you think this guy costs? Let's look. How about $18.9 million? A car, $18.9 million. Top speeds, 260 miles. I'll stand over here and do it. Top speeds, 260 miles an hour. It's got 1,479 horsepower at 6,700 RPM. Now, do you remember the car that I talked about earlier today? Okay, here we're talking about a manual. I'll come back to that one in a minute. So on this one here, we're spending $18.9 million. We've got only 260 mile an hour out of it, and it's got 1,479 horsepower. This car is sweet. It's light. It corners great. Do you think they'd have to take care of it? So let's look at the manual. Here's a S-Class Cadillac, and here's some examples of the owner's manual on that Cadillac. Damage caused by wrong fuel. So, yes. What did I say? Cadillac? I'm sorry, Mercedes. Yes, thank you. So if you put the wrong fuel in it, in the owner's manual, it will be messed up, right? Okay. Even small amounts of the wrong fuel could result in damage to the fuel system, the engine, and the ignition control. Could that be true with the human body? Yes. Never refuel using any of the following fuels: diesel, more than 10% ethanol, more than 3% methanol, gasoline with additives containing metal. If you accidentally refuel with the wrong fuel, do not switch the engine on. So if you pull up to the gas pump and you put the wrong fuel in it, don't even crank the engine. Suck the fuel out. That's how sensitive this Mercedes is. Do you think the human body is sensitive to the nutrition? We read this morning that Harvard said so, didn't we? Yeah. Even small amounts of the wrong fuel could result in damage to the fuel system and the engine. Repair costs are high, it says in the manual. Are the repair costs high for the human body? Yes, it is. And we'll kind of go through warnings. I mean, just all kinds of warning. Risk of accident due to malfunction of system failures. There's all kinds of warnings through this manual. Danger, risk of exhaust gas poisoning, just all risk of injury from unsecured items in the vehicle, warning, risk of accident from damaged tires. Damaged tires can cause tire pressure loss. And it just goes on. All this warning signs that the Mercedes gives. Insufficient tire pressure can cause an accident. Let's look and see if there's things that we need to look at for the human manual based on science. Do you think that this is a Rolls Royce or a Bugatti? Yes, absolutely. Does she need to run on premium fuel? Right now she is. She's running on mama's fuel. Yes. Pardon? No Similac. That's exactly right. Okay, so we look at if we take care of the car, we're going to have healthy bodies. If we got a clunker, either way, we're going to have challenges. Do you agree? If you take care of that, if you don't take care of the car, that's what it's going to look like. If you don't take care of the body, that's what it's going to look like. Damaged by the wrong fuel, and again, small amounts of fuel it talks about here. But let's look at the fuel, at the human body, and see if there's anything that we need to look at. The longevity study, it's the Alameda County study, the Breezal-Belloc study, we found that we've got to eat breakfast regularly, no eating between meals, maintain proper weight, exercise regular, sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, no smoking, no alcohol. This is a study done in California. It's 6,900 people over a 15-year period. They just wanted to see what causes people to live longer or die quicker. Do any of those look familiar? Do they look familiar? Yes. Absolutely. It's the New Start. It's the 8 laws of health that God gave us back how long ago? Creation. Okay, creation. But when did we get it in our information? Okay, so what was going on that day? It was a Friday evening. What happened that morning? General Robert E. Lee had the Northern Virginia Army. He was moving his army from Fredericksburg over to Culpeper. Hooker was coming down from D.C. to attack Lee's army. Lee had gotten wind of it, took the army, fled out of Fredericksburg, going to Culpeper. It was that morning. Has that been a long time ago? It was that morning that Lee did that night God gave that information to Ellen White in that dream. So have we had this information a long time? What are we doing with it? We've had it so long we're ignoring it now. You know what I'm saying? Oh, just the 8 laws of health. It's the foundation. It is the foundation. We find that for men on this study, then the first part of the study was just 9 years, and then went so well they went 15 years. But in the first 9 years, they found that if you followed all 7 of those habits, only 9% of the men died. 5.5% of the men died. Just drop one habit. Just one of those habits, just drop one of these habits. Eat breakfast regularly, eating between meals, being over ideal body weight, not exercising, not getting 7 to 8 hours sleep, smoking or alcohol. Just drop one of them. Look what happened. It doubled your risk of dying from 5.5 to 11%. 5 was 13.4, 4 was 14.1, 3 to 0, 20% of the people died in just 9 years. See the big difference between if you followed all 7 versus dropping just 4 of them? It's amazing. Let's look at women. Women didn't see as much jump when they dropped 1, they went from 5.3 to 7.7, but you still see it increases your risk of dying. Each day, choices made benefit or harm your health, only a little, but when these choices are repeated over years and decades, the rewards or consequences become major. What happens if you smoke just 1 cigarette, are you going to get lung cancer? Just 1 cigarette? Probably not. But what happens chronic smoking? You're more prone to get that lung cancer. Or how about eating junk food? Just getting 1 box of McDonald's fries probably is not going to give you a heart attack. But if you're eating at McDonald's all the time, there's a good chance you're going to get a heart attack. Watch the movie Super Size. That'll show you the consequences. So let's look at the human manual. We're just going to look at the first one today, fuel, and see how fuel affects the human body. This is the car I spoke about this morning. It's a Dodge Hellcat. That's the car that this fellow's getting ready to send back to Petty again to jack it up from 1,440 some horsepower up to about 1,600 is what he's hoping for. That car's going to be in a moonshine movie. That's why he's got his mason jars in there. Now, do you think that this car needs to be taken care of a certain way in order to run at that high performance? Absolutely. Do you think that he can, instead of putting that STP, again, Richard Petty rebuilt it, so probably Richard Petty probably put STP motor oil in there. But do you think I think I'll just put lard in there this morning? You think he can put that in the engine? Lard? No. Or in the windshield wiper, do you think he can just, he doesn't like using windshield wiper fluid. He'll just put a Dr. Pepper in there. No. He's got to put exactly what the manufacturer recommends. Let's see here. Let's go here. Fuel. The number one reason people choose food is what? The number of people choose food is, you're exactly right, taste. According to the American Journal of the American Dietetic Association, they did a study and they found that number 1 was taste, number 10 was nutrition. Habit, ethnic heritage, or tradition. I live in the South. We fry everything. Right? Maters, taters, pickles, ice cream, okra, pigs, chickens. If we can fry it, we fry it. Poke. We can fry poke. The little stalks. And if we don't fry it, we put oil in it. What do we eat on New Year's Day? What do we eat here in the South on New Year's Day? Black-eyed peas. You better eat your black-eyed peas. Tradition. If you want a good year, you better and put you some fat back in it, it'd be even better. Traditions. Do we not have ethnic traditions? I don't know if y'all do, but we sure have it in the Appalachia. We got big-time traditions on what we eat. Biscuits and gravy and hog jowl and chitlins and the fatback and the ham hocks and you know what I'm talking about. But it's my ethnic background. It's the way my mama cooked. It's the way my grandma cooked. Well, the way my grandma cooked and the way my mama cooked was killing me. And when I changed, I then got healthier. Social interactions, availability, convenience, economy, positive and negative associations, emotional comfort. Do people have comfort foods? Sure do. Values, body weight and image, and number 10, nutrition. Now, I think taste is okay. God gave us taste buds, didn't He? So is it okay to enjoy the taste of the food? Yes. Absolutely. So strawberries. Is it okay that strawberries are delicious? Mangoes. Who's from the Caribbean? Okay, where are you from? Where are you from? Trinidad. How many types of mangoes do you have in Trinidad? A lot? Maybe 30 or something? A lot. I just eat the one in the store and it's awful good. I'd like to try them others. It's okay to enjoy food that tastes good. So taste is okay. But unfortunately, manufacturers, and I believe they've been influenced by Satan, to make unhealthy foods taste good and addictive, so you'll take it. When I was taking nutrition from Cornell, Dr. Campbell told us that they went and took a Kellogg's Pop-Tart, a strawberry Kellogg's Pop-Tart, and they dissected it. They looked at the ingredients. And they found that it was over 100 chemicals that made it taste like a strawberry, but there was no strawberries in it. The Surgeon General Report on Nutrition and Health tells us dietary excess and imbalance causes much disease and death. Excess and imbalance. Now, dinner was good today. Did you enjoy it? But can we eat too much of haystacks? Yeah, we can. Either if we ate it, that's all we ever ate, we need some mangoes, right? Yeah. And also, is 5 plate loads, is that a little too much? Yeah. Diet has a vital influence on health. 5 of the top 10 killers are directly related, again, this is the Surgeon General, United States Surgeon General. 5 of the top 10 killers are directly related to diet. It includes heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and atherosclerosis. And according to Dr. Campbell, it's even, there's a lot. It is clear, still, Surgeon General, it is clear that diet contributes in substantial ways to the development of these diseases, and that modification of diet can contribute to their prevention and their control. So can we prevent disease with diet? Can we reverse it? Yes, we can. We're now, just go talk to Dr. Esselstyn up at Cleveland Clinic, and he can tell you how well that a whole food plant-based diet can reverse cardiovascular disease. A poor diet may cause health problems, causing deficiency diseases such as blindness, anemia, scurvy, preterm birth, stillbirth, obesity, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and osteoporosis, according to NIH. Every day, several times a day, you make food choices that influence your body's health for better or for worse. It's your choice whether or not you get that type 2 diabetes. It's your choice whether you get that cardiovascular disease. But Walt, you don't understand. It's genetics. My daddy had it, my granddaddy had it. But where's your granddaddy from? Where's your daddy from? What kind of foods did your granddaddy eat? What kind of foods did your daddy eat? I was in Mississippi, and this fellow told me he had Syndrome X. And I was sitting there, he was an assistant fire chief, and I was sitting on out on the apron on the fire department, and they were covering for them. And I said, listen, you've got some health issues. Can I help you? He goes, oh, I'm fine. My doctor said I have Mississippi syndrome. Southern Mississippi syndrome. Southern Mississippi syndrome. I'll be okay. All I have to do is go by his office and pick up the different drugs, and I can do whatever I want to do. Every day, several times a day, you make food choices that influence your body's health for better or for worse. Your food choices each day affect your health, how you feel today, tomorrow, and the future. And that's the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Good nutrition is an important part of leading healthy lifestyle combined to physical activity. Your diet can help you reach and maintain a healthy weight, reduce your risk of chronic diseases like heart disease cancer, and promote overall health. Again, President's Council on Nutrition. Unhealthy eating habits contribute to the obesity epidemic in the United States. About 1/3 of the United States adults, 33.8, are obese, and approximately 17%, or 12.5 million, of children and adolescents aged 2 to 9, 18 years, are obese. Even for people at a healthy weight, poor diet is associated with major health risks that can cause illness, even death. So can you have a healthy weight but still eat the wrong food and still get sick? Yes. These include heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and certain types of cancer. Making the smart food choices, you can help protect yourself from these health problems. Again, that wasn't me. That was the President's Council on Nutrition, sports fitness and nutrition. The risk factors for adult chronic disease like hypertension, type 2 diabetes are increasingly seen in younger ages and often results of unhealthy eating habits, increased weight gain. Dietary habits established in childhood often carry into adulthood, so teaching children how to eat healthy at a young age will help them stay healthy throughout life. I know this family. Dad's big, mom's big. First son is ideal body weight. Second son is like mom and dad. They tell the first son that he's odd. It's kind of like the ugly duckling story. They tell him that he's not normal, that he needs to gain more weight like his brother, his younger brother. His younger brother is significantly obese like mom and dad. And because in their eyes, they look around and see as normal, they think that's normal, and they look at this young boy and they say, you need to gain some weight. You need to start eating some more food so you can look like us. A guy came in to see me a couple weeks ago, and he's rather large. He went to his physician, and his physician said, you need to lose weight. He said, I'd look scrawny. He says, you're looking at too many people around you that aren't healthy. They're too big themselves. Is that not true? So often people come in and I say, okay, you need to go to a BMI of 22 and here's what you'd weigh. Oh, I can't do that. I'd look scrawny. I'd look just bones. I said, no, bones is over here, this way. No, I can't do that. I'd look too scrawny. Which would you rather have? Your diabetes? You're about to go on dialysis? You got neuropathy? Look at your feet. What would you rather have? Would you rather get rid of that problem and your eyes be scrawny to everybody else around you? I don't think I could look like that. You're losing your feet.
Have you ever seen anyone smoke through a stoma?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. It's what happens is a person goes and they have surgery and they've got a stoma here and they're smoking out their throat. Yeah. It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we just shake our head at them, but yet, are we doing things? It's kind of like the Israelites. We look at the Israelites and we say, how stupid were they? God told them to do this, this, and this, and look what they did. They kept doing that. But look at us. God told us to do this, this, and this, and we keep doing this, this, and this. Carelessness. This is Understanding Nutrition. The book Understanding Nutrition. It's one of the nutrition. It's your basic college nutrition book for nurses and nutrition students. Carelessness about food choices from youth on can be a major contributor to many of today's most prevalent chronic diseases of later life, including heart disease and cancer. What do you think that first one is? It's a heart. What's the next one? It's colon. Yeah, it's working over here. Dietary excess or imbalance contributes to high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, dental disease, osteoporosis, gastrointestinal diseases. Just go to a restaurant. They got the supersized meals. They got the super drinks. Do you want the regular meal? You want the supersized meal? People tell me. I don't go to those restaurants, but they tell me about going to them. They have those choices. Which one do you want? The one that has extra? They give so much food out there, so much calories now that people are eating.
The worst thing is all you can eat buffet.
Oh yeah, I got to get my money's worth.
Up everywhere.
Yeah, I got to get my money's worth. I'll eat enough for several days. Yeah. Consumption of red and processed meat has been associated with colorectal cancer. High consumption of red meat was associated with high risk of rectal cancer, and that's JAMA. Someone came in the other day and they had colon cancer, and their doctor told them, no red meat. You got to stop the red meat. They know. For the large majority, the choices people make each and every day will benefit or impair their health in proportion to the wisdom of those choices. You've got a choice. You want a smoothie? Or you want a big whatever? Which would you choose? That quick? Yeah, absolutely. Keys to nutrition, we're looking at the fuel system. As we look at the fuel system on a vehicle, it's very systematic how it works. Goes from the gas tank, goes to the pump, the fuel pump, goes through a filter, then goes through the carburetor or injection system, whichever you have, and then it's very systematic. If something gets messed up, it's not going to run. Does the body have a system? It does. So what you put in your mouth goes into the blood. But first of all, let me explain it better here. Whatever you eat here, it's going to go up into the mouth. You're going to chew it up in the esophagus. It's going to go down into the stomach. The stomach's going to process it. It's going to go into the small intestines, and then it's going to go into the blood. From the blood, it's going to go into the whole body. But basically, what you eat is going to go in the blood. What goes in the blood is going to go to the rest of your whole body. Many times when we eat food, we eat that ice cream, we eat that Snickers, we just think, well, it's just a Snickers. But are we realizing it's going to the whole body? Are we really realizing that donut is going to the whole body? Timing, eating 2 large meals per day improves insulin. I'm sorry there. I thought I fixed that. You've got a meat diet versus a whole food diet. We're now seeing, even in science, recommending 2 meals a day. You actually have a better situation when you're dealing with diabetes. I remember when I went to the clinic and they only fed the patients breakfast and the noon meal. I call dinner the noon meal. I went in, I was the director of the clinic. I went in and told the physician, I said, you can't do this. You got to serve them breakfast, dinner, supper, mid-morning snack, a mid-afternoon snack, and an HS snack. And they said, why? I said, the American Dietetic Association, it's a standard of practice. You just got to do it. And they said one thing. Did you reverse diabetes where you came from? See, where I came from, of 20 years of working in regular health care, I never saw one patient care plan that said reversing diabetes. It was always diabetic management through pharmaceuticals. At this clinic, we had a 98% reversal of type 2 diabetes. We fed breakfast and dinner. That's all. Can you argue with the outcomes? No. I don't know what happened there. It promotes weight loss better in patients than grazing, even when total numbers of daily calories is the same. You need to have 2 meals a day. And I sit down with people and I say, tell me, how many meals do you eat a day? Just eat once. And it's all day long. I mean, they graze all day long. And that's not healthy on the body. It's not. You know, on the nurse study that we looked at, on the study we looked at earlier, Riesel-Belloc study, they found that if you eat between meals, you die quicker. So Loma Linda wanted to find out why you die quicker. So they took a bunch of nurses and they fed them breakfast, fed them dinner, fed them supper, waited 2 hours, sucked everything out of their stomachs, and they found that they had supper. The next day, they took the same group of nurses, fed them the same breakfast, same dinner, same supper, but they gave them a mid-morning snack, a mid-afternoon snack, and then 2 hours after supper, they sucked everything out of their stomachs. And they found part of breakfast, part of dinner, and part of supper. Why? Well, let's say that he buys you a new washing machine. And normally let's say you start a load of wash, and then you found a washcloth somewhere. No problem. You go and pick it up, toss it in there. It already started, but it's only been running a little bit. You pick it up, toss it in there, close it, and it keeps on going. But this washing machine is different. This new one he got you. Every time you lift it up and close it, it starts right over again. Oh, you found one of his socks. Pick it in there, lift it up, whoop, starts back over again. That's what Loma Linda found happens when we eat again. It starts digestion over again and over again and over again, and you don't finish digestion. That's why they found breakfast and lunch in the stomach 2 hours after supper. And so they're now saying, just eat 2 meals a day. You'll be a whole lot healthier. Now, yes, let's say you work and you're a dock worker or you're a firefighter out really needing to work. You need 3 meals a day. That's perfectly fine. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. If there's someone out there that needs that extra calories, they need that third meal. Absolutely. Eating 2 large meals per day improves insulin sensitivity and promotes weight loss better than patients than grazing, even when the total number of daily calories is the same. That's where I messed up before. This is from the American Dietetic Association. It says the data suggests that eating fewer, larger, a hearty breakfast and lunch can be healthy and beneficial for people with type 2 diabetes. Researchers from Institute of Clinical and Experimental Medicine in Prague. Our results support the ancient proverb, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. We've heard that before, haven't we? So over in Prague, they're identifying this. So it's not just here in America, they're identifying it over there. Benefits of eating breakfast. The Alameda County study said eat breakfast regularly. It found that you die quicker if you don't eat breakfast. Well, why? Well, it can provide energy to start the day, reduces the risk of a heart attack or stroke by 150%. Remember Neil Nedley's book, Proof Positive? In that book, Neil has a graph there that shows if you eat breakfast within 2 to 3 hours, you reduce your risk of a heart attack by 150%. Based on the platelets. When you eat that breakfast, it thins that out. You're less prone for that clot. Decreases appetite, decreases hunger and cravings throughout the day, improves cognitive skills. There's a thing going on right now called intermittent fasting. Well, intermittent fasting is fine if you do breakfast and dinner and skip supper. But if you skip breakfast and do dinner and supper, that messes up. Because one, the study showed if you skip breakfast, you're going to die quicker. We know that you need that nutrients for the brain to get that morning going. Let's go back to that steam train at Dollywood. Do you think they can say, well, we don't put coal in the train until noon? Is it going to work? Or let's say I'm getting ready to fly to Canada to Amazing Discoveries in a couple of weeks. And I get in the plane in Knoxville, and the pilot goes, we don't put fuel in here in Knoxville. We just don't like these guys here, so we ain't going to put fuel in it. When we get up to Chicago, we might put a little bit, and then we'll get to Toronto, we'll put a bit more. But right before we land in Vancouver, we'll fill this thing up. No, you ain't getting in that airplane. I ain't either. So we need to put that fuel in the morning to run the body through the morning. And then the risk of the heart attack and the stroke, they actually find that if you eat breakfast, the body is more satisfied. It's not as hungry through the day. We're also told that you're less prone to you actually lose weight better if you eat breakfast. if you skip breakfast, we're told that it's harder to lose the weight.
Is there an ideal time to eat breakfast relative to the time you wake up? Like if you wake up at 5, is it too early to eat breakfast at 6, or should you wait?
According to the I'm wrong. Dr. Nedley's research, where it talks about if you eat breakfast within 2 to 3 hours of awaking, you reduce your risk of a heart attack by 150%. So within 2 to 3 hours after awaking. Improves cognitive skills. So the issue of this fasting for breakfast, it's better to eat breakfast, eat dinner, fast that supper. Prevents the body from going into starvation mode, thus burns calories and prevents creating fat. Helps one lose weight, lowers stress, boosts metabolism, increases productivity. Benefits of eating breakfast. Okay, the benefits of eating dinner or lunch. Re-energizes the body, increases focus and concentration, increases metabolism. See, when you eat, Dr. Koop was the best guy on this. He was the best guy in the world on this subject. And Koop found that when you eat breakfast, it increases metabolism, you burn calories. When you eat the noon meal, it increases metabolism, you burn calories. He found around 2:30, 3 in the afternoon, our metabolism shuts down. So when we eat supper, he finds that it did not burn calories like it did those first 2 meals. So that's why you have better weight loss if you eat breakfast and dinner and don't eat supper. Versus eating dinner and supper, you're going to hang on to those calories more. Increases focus and concentration, increases metabolism. Skipping supper can rev up the appetite later, causing one to overeat or choose foods that have poor nutritional value. Taking a dinner break and nourishing the brain with nutrition-dense foods will lead to better work in the afternoon. Reduces the propensity to becoming irritable, moody, and sluggish. When one skips dinner, the brain has a much harder time storing new information and retrieving old information. We need that to keep going. So it's like me getting on the airplane in Knoxville. So they fill up in Knoxville. But when I get to Chicago, when I get to Toronto, he doesn't put fuel in the plane. But right before I land in Vancouver, they put fuel in the plane.
What's the cutoff time for dinner?
The noon meal. Oh, the evening meal. Okay.
What time should you have dinner? Between 3 and 6 or 4?
Okay. When you say dinner, you mean supper?
Yeah.
Okay. Most folks will say you don't want to eat after 5. Look at when you're going to bed. You definitely don't want to eat. Some folks will say don't eat within 5 hours of going to bed. Again, look at what time you're going to bed. When one skips dinner, the noon meal, their body will begin to slow or even shut down, slow down activities that aren't necessary in a way to save energy. This causes metabolism and digestion to slow down, thus increasing the risk of weight gain. Okay, if you read Inspiration, what does she call the morning meal? What? She calls it breakfast. What does she call the noon meal? Dinner. What does she call the evening meal? And what does she call that late meal before you go to bed? Lunch. She says, do not eat lunch. And I thought, lunch? So I studied and studied. What does she mean by don't eat lunch? Well, I knew she called the noon meal dinner, but in that time frame, when she was writing, the meal that was that bedtime snack that we call it, they called it lunch. And so then when people started eating a light meal in the midday, they called that then, because it's a light meal, they called it lunch. Isn't that interesting? Benefits of leaving one's desk at dinner time: more productive, more creative, enjoys their food more prone to eat less, can get needed fresh air, increases movement. Sitting for a long time is extremely unhealthy. Does that make sense? Benefits of eating a light or no supper. Increases melatonin to aid in sleep. What happens is, as we eat our flaxseed for breakfast, we go out and we get sunshine. As sunshine comes through the eye, it stimulates the pineal gland to turn the tryptophan that's in the flaxseed into what? Serotonin. And then, if we eat a light supper, and if we go to bed at a decent time, then the pineal gland converts the serotonin into melatonin. But if you eat a large supper, it doesn't convert the melatonin. And so it's better to eat that light supper so you convert that melatonin, so you can make that melatonin. Helps in weight loss and weight management. As we talked about, large suppers can cause indigestion that interfere with sleep. Eating between meals. We talked about the Alameda County study about eating between meals. And then the nurse study where Loma Linda found that it causes the organs to overwork. Unfortunately, just like an experienced car, your brain can be damaged if you ingest anything other than premium fuel. We read this morning from from Harvard University. If substances from the low premium fuel, such as what you get from processed or refined foods, gets to the brain, it has little ability to get rid of them. Diets high in refined sugars, for example, are harmful to the brain. In addition to worsening your body's regulation of insulin, they also promote inflammation and oxidation. Inflammation is a huge enemy, y'all. It's huge. Diabetes, atherosclerosis, many problems that we have, pain, are due to inflammation. One of the ways that you can get inflammation is right here, is refined foods. Refined foods will cause inflammation. Multiple studies have found a correlation between a diet high in refined sugars and impaired brain function, and even worsening of symptoms of mood disorders such as depression. This is from Nutritional Psychiatry, Your Brain on Food, Harvard Medical School. Like an expensive car, your brain functions best when it gets only premium fuel. Eating high-quality foods that contain lots of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants nourish the brain and protect it from oxidative stress, the waste, free radicals produced when the body uses oxygen, which can damage cells. Now, here's a question. People come to me and they ask me for the best vitamin. Tell me what the best multivitamin is. I tell them it's in their backyard, in their garden. But here's the problem. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work. Number one, they're not willing to do it. They're not willing to eat a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. So does that person need a multivitamin? Yes. If they're not willing to eat a whole food, plant-based diet that has all the right ingredients that we're going to talk about in a moment, then they're going to need a multivitamin. The next component is, let's say they're growing their garden, but they don't have good soil. Is that going to be a problem? Is it going to be? Yes, it is. Because if it's not in the soil, it's not going to come up in the food. Yes?
You can go to the grocery store and look at your organic fruits like apples and oranges and whatever else, and like half the size of the ones that are not organic. There's a reason for that. They lack nutrition within the soil.
Roy hit something that's really hard for people to grasp. Remember Bob Jorgensen? We went to a conference in Oregon, and Bob did a class for 3 days, and we literally took and tested food for 3 days from various sources in the Portland area. We found that more than 50% of the time, the organic food had more nutrition than, the organic food had less nutrition than just the conventional food. Let me say that again. The conventional food more than 50% of the time, had more nutrition than the organic food. Why? See, when people grow organic food commercially, all they're worried about is don't spray the bad stuff on it. They're not worried about the nutrients, and they don't even hardly put nutrients there. Roy says it's scrawny looking. The fellow who's doing conventional food, he's putting some fertilizer there. And so there's some nutrients. So does that mean we got to quit eating organic and we go back to conventional? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying go to the next step. Go to what, y'all have heard of Bob Gregory. You ought to have Bob come sometime. Bob Gregory and Bob Jorgensen grew biological gardening. And biological, you've got conventional, organic, biological. And what this quantum leap is one is the soil. They assess the soil and they make sure that it's amended for the nutrients that are not there. Why are the nutrients not there? Erosion. Or wearing the soil out by gardening and not re-implementing. So they may put soft rocks phosphate. They may put green sand. They may put blackstrap molasses or whatever it may need to have to build that nutrition to where it belongs. The next thing that they do is they only use heirloom seeds. See, Bob found at the University of North Carolina Department of Agriculture that hybrid seeds down here only uptake about 50% of the nutrients versus the heirloom seeds. So, University of North Carolina, they went and grew crops of same soil. This side they use heirloom. This side they use hybrid. And the hybrid only uptook 40% of the nutrients out of the same field that these guys took. So right off, based on what seed you're putting in the ground, you only have a ROI of 40%, return on investment. You see what I'm saying? So that seeds are very important. Then they don't spray them with stuff. And then if they do spray them with stuff, you know what Bob would spray his with? Tea tree oil? He may have. He would use kudzu tea. Y'all know what kudzu is? Okay? He would take a 55-gallon drum, cut kudzu, put it in there, put water in it. Y'all know what sun tea is? Sun tea, where you let the tea sit out all day and make tea in the sun. Well, he makes sun tea kudzu. And he'd go about 20 days, and then he had a spout in the bottom, and then he'd spray his crops with this kudzu tea, not Roundup or Seven Dust. So that's what Roy's talking about. There's a huge difference. So if we had biological gardens to eat our food out of, that would make a difference. But then what about the person who has extreme anxiety, stress? They feel like there's a herd of horses in them. I remember I asked Dr. Campbell one day at Cornell, I said, Dr. Campbell, if I give a person B-complex 100, one each meal, it's phenomenal in dealing with stress and anxiety. I learned that from an old doc at Florida Hospital back in 1978. He said, Walt, if you want to help people with stress, the best thing I found is B-complex. He was exactly right. And so I told Campbell, this is the results I see. Tell me a food that I can get for these people with stress, anxiety, depression, that will have that amount of B-complex to get that outcome. He said, Walt, there's not any. So, for the most part, where should we get our fats, proteins, complex carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals in our food? But there are times that either based on any of those situations that we just talked about, we might need some supplementation. How about vitamin D? You need vitamin D? You might, if you got a 4 like that lady the other day. Or even if you've got a 30, get it on up there higher. You might need some vitamin D. Pardon? Superfood powders are great, but see if they give you the nutrients that you're needing. But superfood powders are very good. Yes. So high premium fuel, what is it? You got fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Then vitamins are the catalysts that kick on the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Then you got minerals are the catalysts that kick on the vitamins, which then, if vitamins are 8 cylinders, they kick on fats, proteins, carbohydrates. But in order for vitamins to be at 8 cylinders, they have to have minerals at 8 cylinders. The problem is a lot of people are deficient in minerals. Again, because of the reasons we talked about earlier. And if you don't have adequate minerals, even though you've got vitamins at 8 cylinders and fats, proteins, and carbs those are healthy fats like your avocados, your olives. If you don't have 8 cylinders in minerals, the vitamins don't kick on. And so you need a high premium fuel, which is whole food. But here's the problem. It just says whole food. Let me go back. We'll come back to it. Okay, so here's some whole food. Those look okay? Did you know just one serving of nuts, 6 or more days a week, reduce the risk of non-fatal heart attacks, MIs, myocardial infarctions, by 48%, and a fatal heart attack by 38%. If you have just a serving, just a half a handful of nuts, 6 days or more a week, then you're going to lower your risk of a non-fatal heart attack by 48% and a fatal heart attack by 38%. That's significant. Again, your high premium fuels, whole foods. The more we learn about nutrition, the more it seems we should eat the way people did 100 years ago. Recent research appears to be pointing us in the direction of eating mostly whole foods, that is, foods that are as close to their natural form as possible. Many health experts believe that eating more whole foods is our best bet for improving health and preventing disease. Whole foods, like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and legumes, retain their fiber as well as the whole portfolio of beneficial phytochemicals and nutrients that are often removed in the processing process, in the refining of foods. High premium foods, whole foods. Low premium fuels, processed foods. Can you see the difference? Whole foods versus processed foods. Whole foods are foods that have not been refined. Processed foods are bad. This is medical news today. Processed foods are bad. They are a major contributor to obesity and illness around the world. Every time a population adopts a Western diet and processed foods, they get sick. We used to, and when I worked in regular healthcare, we monitored this and we called it the McDonald's syndrome. Within X years, I don't remember exactly what it was, but within X years, after McDonald's and Wendy's and those guys went in there, they got syndrome X. Obesity, hypertension, high triglycerides, diabetes, syndrome X. It happens within a few years. Their genes don't change, their food does. That's a very important statement there that Medical News Today identified. Their genes don't change. Their food does. You can take a Japanese woman and watch her in Japan and rule Japan, say Okinawa, and monitor in Okinawa, and she's not getting breast disease. She's not getting those diseases. Put her over here in America, and she gets those diseases. You take an American woman, you weren't born here. You're Jamaica? Where?
Bronx, New York.
So you're an American woman. Okay. I was thinking you're from Jamaica. Okay, so you take you and put you in Japan, and you're not going to have those diseases that the American women are getting here, like breast cancer and problems. It's not genes. It's what are you eating? Them women in Okinawa, they're not eating the American diet, the affluent diet, the standard American diet. 9 scientifically proven ways that processed foods are bad for one's health. High in sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Processed foods are usually loaded with added sugar or its evil twin, high fructose corn syrup. Sugar is empty calories. They're an enemy too. Sugar is empty calories. It has no essential nutrients but large amounts of energy. So when we're eating that refined food, we're calling those empty calories. Yes?
What do you think about the ketonic diet?
The what?
Ketonic diet, the keto diet.
The keto diet. I like just the whole food plant-based better, where it's just plant-based. Did you know that Fruit Loops are plant-based? Yeah. Did you know that Oreos are plant-based? They are. But are they whole food? No. So it's got to be plant-based, whole food. So some of those other go ahead.
Well, the keto diet is high fat, no carbs, high fat, fruits and vegetables.
But what are the fats from?
Nuts, seeds, avocado, eggs, cheese.
Okay? So you're getting into those animal products. See, Cornell University and Cambridge University, and this is hard for me to say. I grew up on a dairy farm. But Cornell found that dairy is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. That's straight out of Fundamentals of Nutrition, their course, Fundamentals of Nutrition, or Nutrition Fundamentals. And so whether it's milk, cheese, yogurt, whatever, it's the most carcinogenic food that we're eating. And so I just choose not to go that direction. The other challenge is what it does to the gastrointestinal system.
But I don't know, but they say it's been proven that it helps you to lose weight.
It does, yes. Statins also lower cholesterol, but there's side effects. And so the side effects that I see with the dairy, I'm still concerned. And again, I grew up on a dairy farm, so this is a tough transition for me. Yes.
The goal isn't to lose weight, the goal is to be healthy.
Okay.
So you could drink beer and eat donuts and lose weight conceivably. If you eat one donut and drink a little beer, you could lose weight, but you're not going to be healthy.
That's a very good point. Did you hear his point? The point is not to lose weight, it's to be healthy. Now, if you're going to be healthy, you're going to be in the ideal body weight. When we do classes, we just did a class several months ago, and we lost over 700 pounds in the class. We had 2 pharmacists, we had a psychologist, we had a bunch of nurses, and they did very, very well. And they kept focusing on weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. And I said, yes, that is but only one indicator. I'm also looking at, other issues of your health, not just your weight. So that's a very important point is, yes, you can losing weight is important to be ideal body weight, but it's not the only goal. But is that way of losing weight, does it have some challenges? Oh, yes, ma'am.
You grew up on a dairy farm,
Yes.
so you understand the transition. You saw a lot of people, how to keep them compliant, how to make that transition from what you learned growing up. You can accept that it's correct, but getting there is hard.
Yes.
How did you accomplish it?
My doctor told me I was going to die. And I went to another doctor, and he said, you're allergic to dairy. And so the doctor is a gastroenterologist, told me I was going to die if I didn't have my colon taken out, and I went from like 209 pounds down to 140 pounds. My skin was gray in color. Hemoglobin wouldn't come above 7.1. My whole colon had no intact tissue in it. No tissue on the inside, according to the gastroenterologist. And he said, you're going to die. And he said, if you if you take the colon out, yeah, you'll probably live, but you're going to have to do without your colon. So I went to another doc, and he said it's the dairy. So was that hard on me? Pardon? What? Oh, yeah, you're going to share something. Oh, she wants to tell on me.
No.
Oh, so here it is.
You know, I love to hear my husband speak. He's so inspiring, even for me. And, you know, we were talking on a sprouting class one week, and I was trying to explain about that sometimes we don't understand something, but, you know, the person that told us why we needed to sprout, why the grains, it was about the grains, cooking the grains more thoroughly. And I said, you know, we had a lot of respect for it. It was Dr. Thrash. And, you know, we knew her heart. We knew she studied, so we respected it. And I said, just like the Bible, we may not always understand, but when God says it, we want to obey. And so I started thinking about it later that week. And, you know, it came stronger in my conviction that there's so many of these laws that sometimes in our busiest schedules that it's not always easy to do it. It's not easy to do it. But just like the paralytic, when he was told to take up his bed and walk, he didn't try to stop and analyze it or think, but he obeyed. And sometimes I think it's as simple as that. It's just obeying, and once we take that step in faith and obey, then I believe the blessing will be there.
I think it's most easy for a person who hasn't been a Christian all their life to understand. When you found Christ, did you change? All your buddies were doing what? Maybe even your family were doing what? But you found Christ and you made immediate change. Maybe not everything at once, but you made the change. And you walked away from that lifestyle. Once you learn about a healthy lifestyle, is the same way. You identify it. You want to have that brain, that body can serve God stronger. And maybe you don't change all of a sudden all at once, but you start making those steps, making those changes. For me, on the diet, on the dairy, I hurt. I mean, literally, I couldn't eat. It felt like I was getting stabbed by a knife. It was very, very painful. And I loved cheese. When we got married, I informed Mary Lou. I was staying down here in Kennesaw, in Academy, and I stayed at these people's houses. He was an inspector. And I noticed they had 6 kinds of cheese and all kinds of crackers. And I thought, wow, that is really neat. When I get out of school, I'm going to do that. So when we got married, I told her, when I have enough money, we're going to have 6 kinds of cheese and crackers, and I'm going to enjoy it. Well, guess what? We did. But so making that change was difficult for me because I really, really like dairy. I could easily drink a half a gallon to a gallon of milk a day. I could easily eat a quart of cottage cheese a day. But with my case, I was sick, and so I made that change. When you're not sick, it's a little tougher. But like Mary Lou said, when we identify that, like we talked today, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatever you do, whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. And so we have to make that commitment. No, I have to do it. Yes, ma'am.
I understand your personal testimony, but my question was more geared toward the population that you see, that you treat. How do you help them?
How do I help them?
Hereditary influences, environment, over to where they need to be.
The people who come see me are sick. They've got the diabetes, they've got the heart disease, they've got the cancer, they've got the fibromyalgia. And so it's not that person who just walks in the door and says, I want a healthy lifestyle.
We were sharing downstairs at that where Mrs. White says to fast until it tastes good.
Yes. Okay. When I went to the Lifestyle Center, I noticed that we offered a whole food plant-based diet to the patients, and they'd complain. They miss their steaks, they miss their hamburgers, their whatever, hot dogs. And then I hired Joel Arcilla, the top surgeon in Philadelphia, and he's also a trauma physician that was having better indicators than us. And I hired him to come in and teach us why did he have better outcome indicators than us. And he taught us to juice them. Dr. Agatha taught me to fast them, water fast. So what we started doing was doing a water fast, and then we did a juice fast. Then we did the Duke diet, which is brown rice and fruit, or brown rice and a salad. And then down the road, then we gave them a whole food plant-based diet. So what happens, the first thing we did, we just had them just drink water. So then when they start drinking the juice, this is pretty good. And then when they start doing the raw diet, wow, this mango is good. And then when they add some brown rice to that and a nice salad, whoa, this is good stuff. And then when we start eating that whole food plant-based diet that has some whole food plant-based crepes and waffles, and wow, this is good. So Ms. White talked about fast the patient till the food tastes good. And I was sharing with Dan at lunch about, I went to a seminar out in California, it was a medical seminar, and this doctor was teaching about different types of cooking, and he was sharing how microwave is the worst. You lose the most nutrients when you cook with a microwave. And then he was big into not eating food that came from another meal. He felt you need to eat it that, only make enough for that one meal and throw the leftovers away. Well, I don't agree with that. Well, I agree with make enough for that meal, but if you do have leftovers, don't throw them away. Eat that next meal. Don't waste food. But he didn't believe in that. And so his mother-in-law came to live with him, and she would give him grief. She was from Europe, a very kind of lady. So he's got to make his mother-in-law happy. And so he says, well, mother-in-law, what if I give the extra food from this meal to the dogs? Are you okay if I give it to the dogs? And she goes, I'm fine with that. Just don't throw it in the trash can. He goes, great. So he gave it to the dogs. The dogs wouldn't eat it. So he thought, what do I do? So then he said, okay. He put the dogs MPO 3 days. Y'all know what MPO is? Nothing by mouth. He put them on a 3-day fast. You know how the doc puts you on an MPO at midnight? You got surgery the next day. Dogs didn't eat nothing for 3 days. Then he fed them leftovers. Them dogs had no problem from then overeating them leftovers. So like Mary Lou said, fast the patient till the food tastes good. So we do that incremental stepping when we work with people, and then that whole food plant-based diet, they really enjoy it. No, we'll have people to do a water fast for 1 to 5 days. Then we do at least one. If they want to go 5, that's fine. And then we do a juice fast for 21 to 60 days. And then we do a fruit fast, just fruit for breakfast and dinner, supper juice, for 2 weeks, at least to 4 weeks. And then we leave them on the Duke diet until their condition is corrected. So they're at ideal body weight. They have a normal A1C. We've got that atherosclerosis turned around. So we leave them on the Duke diet for quite a while. Duke leaves patients on it for over a year. And then after they get to where they need to be, then we start doing the whole food plant-based diet. My brother called me the other day. He said, Walt, he says, I'm there. What? He goes, I'm at my ideal body weight. Now, my brother's been on the Duke diet now for a combination Duke diet 1.5 years, 2 years. He goes, I'm there. Teach me what to do next. And so now we're doing the whole food plant-based diet. So that helped significantly.
One more comment. When we were going through it ourselves, he wasn't necessarily very kind with me. And, the mashed potatoes and the macaroni and cheese, we didn't know what we know now. And it wasn't easy making that transition. It was not easy at all. And just staying away from those foods, my mama made good macaroni and cheese. When I'd come home, or potato soup. And, we didn't like what we were going and having at some of the churches and places. It just didn't taste good. So sometimes we stayed away from those items and, eating more simple foods. And it works the same way because, he wanted to go out to eat all of a sudden because I wasn't cooking. Why can't you just cook like you used to? And he was the one that was sick and, he was really having a tough time with it. So it wasn't easy for us in doing it, even though he knew It was making him sick. The kids and I were all on board, but he was really having a tough time. And I was having a hard time because I couldn't make food that he was happy with. And, I'd get down on my knees and pray and ask God to help me, to make it taste good. And it took time, but he stayed away long enough that we went back to a class reunion, and he had a cheese quesadilla. He gave in and he ate the cheese quesadilla. He said, that was nasty. He says, what you make tastes so much better. But we had been away long enough that God had blessed it, and that act of obeying and staying away. And so I don't know if that helps or not, but
I think another key to it is making it look pretty, because we know that digestion starts in the eyes. Scientists tell us that digestion actually starts when you lay eyes on that food. It prepares the body for that digestion. Carolina Conference sent the health temperance folks from each church down to the camp to learn how to eat a whole food plant-based diet. And they taught us, some massage and some medical missionary stuff. And I would say the food was about the color of that wall, from breakfast to supper. And it tasted about like that too. It was nasty. I came home and I told Mary Lou, I said, you wouldn't believe we ate this way. And I said, we ain't going to eat that way. And Miss White talks about this. She says, when you do a cooking school, you fix food for people, make it taste good. Can you make a whole food plant-based diet that tastes good? Yes. Absolutely you can. If you don't know how, figure it out. Mary Lou, she had nobody to teach her. She didn't. And she was a great cook, unhealthy-wise. And then she started fixing food and fixing. If you come eat her food, it's really good. And she does cooking classes. But find somebody who knows how to cook and get them to teach you. Y'all do cooking classes.
Yes, one of the things about changing from animal-based diet to a plant-based diet, for me, when I cook using the same ingredients as I used when I was making the meat dishes, but I just don't put any meat in it. So it has basically the same taste, because meat don't have any taste. Flesh don't have any taste. Mm-hmm. And God set it up that way when he told us not to eat the fat nor the blood.
That's right.
So he knew it didn't have any taste. So eventually you got rid of it anyhow. But we ate the flesh, we ate the blood, and we ate the fat. And that's where the taste comes. And that's what hooks us. But I just wanted to say that. And I pretty much cook anything. But that was one of the things that I did. I cooked the same way that I cooked when I was using meat, but I just eliminated the meat. And the vegetables and everything tastes wonderful.
I think that's a very good point. Mary Lou will have ladies come to her, and the husband has heart disease or whatever, and so they're wanting to help their husbands get healthier. And so Mary Lou will help them take those old recipes. That's what she did with my mom's recipe and my grandma's recipe, is she went and converted them into healthy recipes, is what he's talking about. And so that's a huge way of helping people. Anybody from Bermuda? Anybody been to Bermuda? What do Bermudans like? Macaroni and cheese. Bermudians love mac and cheese. If you can have a good mac and cheese recipe that's healthy, then you can convert that Bermudian over. When we do fire meeting, we do family night, and the guys ask Mary Lou to bring mac and cheese. But it's healthy mac and cheese. Oh guys, we found something neat. I've got this wheat thing that I talk about. Well, I now get wheat out of Italy since I've been here last. It's called jovial wheat, and you can get it on Amazon. It comes out of Italy, and people, it has 14 chromosomes. It has no Roundup, and people are getting it, and they're telling me that they're not having problems with the gluten intolerance problems with it. Jovial wheat. Jovial. Yes, yes. And I tell you, it's helping folks out. And her mac and cheese just took a new revelation. It's a brown rice, but it's out of Italy. Got it. Jovial. Jovial. That is the brand. It's einkorn. Einkorn or K-O-R-N. Yeah, E-I-N-K-O-R-N, einkorn. But not einkorn is this way, because there's einkorn grown here that has cross-pollination, and einkorn that I've sent off, and it has the high chromosomes. So this comes out of Italy, where they're not allowed to super hybridize, and they're not allowed to spray it with Roundup. And they've got a brown rice pasta that is delicious, delicious. Isn't it good? Yeah. And so that's what you do, is you take those recipes that she's used to, and you help her convert those over to healthy. And that's a huge point. Thank you. And there's, yes?
Is nutritional yeast a good addition to these recipes?
Nutritional yeast? I think it is. There's some people have problems with nutritional yeast, but in moderation, I think it's good. You had a question?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You mentioned the Duke's diet.
Duke.
Yes, but the thing is, I looked it up online, and I'm not
Let me explain.
understanding it.
Thank you for clarifying that. The Duke diet, Dr. Walter Kempner, in 1934 went to Duke, or he started this program in 1934, 85 years ago. When I first went to Duke, it was owned by Duke, and it was called Duke Diet. And so it's kind of like, you know, how we'll say Kleenex instead of tissue. You know, you've grown up saying Kleenex. What happened after I went there, Duke sold it to two physicians that were running it. Now Duke has another Duke diet that is not at all a good diet. So you want to go to, when I talk about the Duke diet, I'm talking about the Rice House diet. That is the new word, what it's called.
So that's what it is. I should look up right.
Look up Rice House diet at Duke University, or there in Duke. Or Walter Kempner. Now when Kempner started this, he only had white rice. But then he converted over to brown rice. But it's the Rice House. Rice House. Thank you for clarifying that, because that does get confusing. Okay. So we talked about sugar as empty calories. Many studies show that sugar can have devastating effects on metabolism that go way beyond its calorie content. Processed foods can lead to insulin resistance, high triglycerides, increased levels of harmful cholesterol, and increased fat accumulation in the liver and abdominal cavity. And with triglycerides, there's sugar issues there. Not surprisingly, sugar consumption is strongly associated with some of the world's leading killers, including heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. Does that mean that we can't eat food that are sweet? No. So, what kind of food can we eat that are sweet? Mangoes, yeah, mangoes. Yeah. How about dates? Dates. Mary Lou puts that in to make her almond milk taste sweet. She puts dates. Raisins, yeah. Bananas. You can put banana in things. Honey. So there's... What's that? Maple syrup. Yeah, it's a good one. She loves maple syrup. Stevia, yes. That was actually one of the prenuptial agreements we had. Yeah, when we got married, she said, no more Aunt Jemima. See, I grew up with Aunt Jemima in the house. And that's all we knew. here in the South. And we got married, and she said, ain't no Aunt Jemima on my table. She says, it's maple syrup. Aunt Jemima has high fructose corn syrup. It's bad for you. Oh, man, I love Aunt Jemima. And she says, not in my house. I said, okay, there's a condition for you. No boxed potatoes. If you make potatoes for me, it has to be real taters. And that's been, and I haven't cheated yet. No more Aunt Jemima. I haven't had Aunt Jemima for 34 years. Yeah, so yes, maple syrup is a good source. Yes. Okay. Okay, let's look at this. We got Jif. Look at the label. I don't know if y'all can read that there. Can you read it? Okay, so what's the first ingredient? And sugar. So if there is an and between the ingredients, it means it's the same amount. If there's a comma, it means it's less the next item. So you can legally call this what? Sugar butter. Exactly. Now let's look at this one. Y'all recognize this one? You can get it at Smucker's. That's right. And peanuts, comma, do you see sugar? Containing 1% or less of salt. So this is a whole lot better. Take a look at that, at those labels. So important. Engineering for overconsumption. Many processed foods have been engineered to be so incredibly rewarding to the brain that they overpower anything that we might have come across in nature. Why is chocolate the world's favorite food? Do you know the reason? They found the reason. Chocolate stimulates the brain exactly the same way that breast milk does. Isn't that interesting? It makes the person want more and be satisfied. Actually, it makes them satisfied and it makes them want more. They actually found it stimulates it exactly the way as breast milk. That's why chocolate is the most favorite food across the world. Milk chocolate. So it's engineered. There's a lot of evidence. I mean, if you go back, Swiss chocolate. Back years ago, did you know that it was, remember Paul Harvey? Paul Harvey would tell us that's the rest of the story. Paul Harvey told us years ago, he said, if you were from Switzerland and you gave the chocolate recipe to another country, you could legally be charged for treason. For treason. So it must not be just some natural thing. It must be something they come up with to make it taste Swiss chocolate. It's engineered. There is a lot of evidence that the reward value of foods can bypass the innate defense mechanisms and make us start eating much more than we need, so much that it starts to compromise our health. Who's read the book Wheat Belly? Okay, read Wheat Belly by Davis. William Davis, I think it is. He's a cardiologist. In there, he talks about where they have super hybridized the wheat. The wheat now is addictive, and he says the wheat does the same thing to the brain that cocaine does to the brain. It makes you addicted to this American wheat. The truth is, processed foods are so incredibly rewarding to our brains that they affect our thoughts and behaviors, making us eat more and more. Processed foods contain artificial ingredients. Let's see, who was that? Okay, we'll find it. Processed foods contain artificial ingredients. If you look at the ingredients label for a processed packaged food, chances are that you won't have a clue what some of the ingredients are. Is that true? You have no idea what that is. One, you can't say it. The other one, you just don't know what that thing is. That's because many of the ingredients in there aren't actually food. They're artificial chemicals that are added for various purposes. Remember Cornell where we looked at the Kellogg's Pop-Tart. Over 100 items to make it taste like a strawberry, but not any strawberry in it. It was chemicals. That's because many of the ingredients there aren't actual food. They're artificial chemicals that are added for various purposes. We must also keep in mind that processed foods can contain dozens of additional chemicals that are not listed on the label. For example, artificial flavors. Artificial flavoring is a proprietary blend. Manufacturers don't have to disclose exactly what it means and is usually a combination of chemicals. Natural flavor. Are there some things that are natural that aren't healthy? Yeah. Highly processed foods often contain preservatives, chemicals that prevent foods from rotting, colorants, chemicals that are used to give food special color, flavor, chemicals that give the food a particular flavor, texturants, chemicals that give a particular texture. When investigating to see what really is in our processed foods, one must keep in mind that processed foods can contain dozens of additional chemicals that aren't even listed on the label. Got an excellent. The hyper-rewarding nature of processed foods can have serious consequences for some people. Some people can literally become addicted to processed food and completely lose control over their consumption. It is the main reason why some people can't just stop eating these foods no matter how hard they try. And they found wheat can cause that type of addictive behavior. Research has shown that consumers of processed foods had their brain biochemistry hijacked by the intense dopamine release that occurs in the brain when they eat the processed foods. Sugar and highly rewarding junk foods active in the same areas of the brain as drugs of abuse like cocaine. One of the main problems of refined simple carbohydrates is that they are quickly broken down in the digestive tract, leading to rapid spikes in the blood sugar and insulin levels. This process can lead to carb cravings just a few hours later when the blood sugar levels go down again. This phenomenon is also called the blood sugar roller coaster, which many who have been on a high carb diet can relate to. If you're going to eat carbs, get them from whole single ingredient foods, not processed junk foods. Processed foods are extremely low in essential nutrients compared to whole unprocessed foods. The more you eat of processed foods, the less you will get vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and various trace nutrients. Fiber, especially soluble fiber, has various benefits. One of the main benefits is that it functions as a prebiotic, feeding the friendly bacteria in the intestine. A lot of the processed foods are low in fiber. There's also evidence that fiber can slow down the absorption of carbohydrates and help us feel more satisfied with fewer calories. Soluble fiber can also help treat many cases of constipation, which is a very common problem today. And someone was talking to me just yesterday, and they came in and the person has a lot of diarrhea. And I suggested that they use a high-fiber diet. And they said, well, I thought that's for constipation. Well, it works for constipation also. So if they're constipated, they can use high fiber, and it brings them to neutral. If they have diarrhea or loose stool, it can bring them to neutral. Fiber that is found naturally in foods is often lost during processing or intentionally removed. Therefore, most processed foods are very low in fiber. How much fiber do we need today? When I was in school, they taught us we needed 25 grams of fiber a day. Now I'm seeing nutritionists recommending between 50 and 60 grams of fiber a day. Again, it was 25 grams when I was in school. Now they're saying 50 to 60 grams. Processed foods net more calorie than if whole. Processed foods net more calories than if they were whole food. Most of the fiber, and I'm almost finished here, y'all. Most of the fiber has been taken out, and the ingredients are refined, thus leaving isolated nutrients. Due to less fiber, we consume more calories from the processed foods in a shorter amount of time, more calories in, when we burn less energy, fewer calories out, digesting them than we would if they were unprocessed or whole food. So what's happening is we're getting more calories in than calories out. So what happens is when you eat food with fiber, it takes calories to break that down. When you're eating processed food, you don't have as much fiber, therefore it takes less burn. So you're keeping more of those calories that are in that processed food. So you net more calories. You think, oh, that's great, that's good. Well, the calories you're getting aren't good. Now, we get that process when we do juicing, but that's whole food. That's a whole different animal there. Diseases associated with low-fiber diet: constipation, appendicitis, diverticular disease, hiatal hernia, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, breast cancer, or bowel cancer, colon polyps, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, mellitus, gallbladder diseases. These are associated with low-fiber diets. Sources of foods that are high in fiber. Look at your beans. A lot more fiber in those beans. Your raspberries. But look at your eggs, meat, and cheese. How much fiber is in those? 0. Adults who consume large quantities of fruit during childhood years have significantly lower rates of cancer than consuming small quantities of fruit as children. And this has been from the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. Let's stop here. We're running out of time here. I'm parched. Any questions?
Regarding tofu, I want to ask this question right so you get a full sense of it.
Is there a key? There you go.
I just want to ask this question right so you get the sense of it. Number one, is tofu considered a refined or processed food? And then number two, tofu is made from soybeans. I don't know if anyone who would take a half a jar or half a cup of peanut butter and eat it. But a serving of tofu might be a half a cup or even a cup, I don't know. And you would eat the whole thing, but it's all soybeans. So if temperance is moderate use of things that are good for you, well, first of all, is tofu good for you? Is it a refined or processed food? And how much is too much?
When we lived in D.C. area, I didn't know this stuff. I was learning it. I didn't know anything about GMO or any of that kind of stuff. And I would go and buy Mary Lou and her friends 5-gallon bucket of tofu for $9.99. 5-gallon bucket for $9.99. And we were eating a lot of tofu. And then we started learning the challenges, the estrogen, the issues of Roundup Ready, or it being Roundup product. My neighbor taught me that. He grew soybeans. And I asked him, I said, can I buy a 5-gallon bucket from you? And he goes, no. I said, why? He says, you're my neighbor. I said, what's that got to do with it? He says, do you know what Roundup is? I said, yeah. He goes, you know what Roundup Ready is? I said, no. So he educated me. He was a farmer that sprayed his crops with Roundup, and he says, I'm not going to sell it to you. It's not healthy for you. I said, what are you doing with it? He says, I'm selling it to cattle. See, Roundup Ready was first initially made just for cattle feed, not for us. And now they're using it for us. So we made a huge change in our utilization of tofu. Is it processed? Absolutely. It is processed. Is it healthy for us? I asked Dr. Agatha that because there's folks out there that say absolutely no tofu at all. It's got estrogen and it's processed and whatever. No, never eat it. Dr. Agatha seemed pretty balanced. I really appreciated her. I said, Dr. Agatha, is it okay to eat tofu? And it was, how much do you eat? Moderation. And if it's in moderation, she said she did not find it to be a problem as of that date. And I have to agree with her so far that I found. In moderation, she doesn't use it that much anymore. And she, every once in a while, may make us something with it, but we just don't use it like we used to. Is it processed? Yes, that's a problem. But if you do get it, make sure it's non-GMO.
Dr. Strachan, Walt's talked about him. He was a psychologist. Psychiatrist. He couldn't eat tofu here, but when he was in Venezuela, they made it. You know, they just made it for the soybeans and cooking it and, you know, just squeezing it out. And I think they boiled it. I'm not sure. I've forgotten how. But he could eat that there. So I'm sure the processing of it is different than it here. And he could not, you know, it affected him. And it probably affects a lot of people, don't realize it completely.
So it's kind of like the Asians. The Asians have eaten tofu, you know, however long, but they ain't doing Roundup Ready soybeans over there. I don't think they are. And so she's saying Dr. Strachan could handle the tofu that was in Venezuela. It didn't have Roundup. It wasn't genetically modified soybeans to start with. And then the way they processed it, it didn't bother him like it does here. Kind of like the wheat that bothers people here, but yet when they're eating my wheat from Italy, they're not having problems. Any other questions? We've got about 4 minutes. Yes, sir.
I have a quick question in terms of water. Because I've heard like some people say that only spring water has to be distilled, has to be double distilled, has to be out of the ground, osmosis. I was wondering, does it really matter, or should we just drink the water to drink the water?
My first response is, if you can, don't drink city water. I have people who only have city water, and so they're not drinking city water. I say drink city water. If you ain't drinking no water, at least drink city water. But if at all possible, find you some water that's spring water or something else. Yes, you can look at distilled water, RO water, Kangen water, or high pH water. There's all kinds of choices out there. My first response is don't drink city water. You don't want the fluoride and you don't want the chlorine. But spring water, I know a good friend of mine, Dr. Harold Cherney. Cherney was big into distilled water. And I said, but Dr. Cherney, what about the minerals that are in the water? Now, I haven't validated this yet. I haven't taken the time to validate it. But Cherney, did any of y'all know Cherney? Cherney, you know the big health remedy, natural remedies encyclopedia, the purple-looking book? Cherney's name's on there. Very smart man. He was triple board certified. He was a surgeon, family practice, and emergency medicine. And Cherney told me that when I asked him that question about distilled water, because a lot of people say distilled water has no minerals in it and you need minerals from your water and all. He said, Walt, when are you drinking your water? Are you drinking it with your meals? I said, no. He says, you only take in the minerals when you're eating food. I haven't verified that, but that's what he told me. And he said, so if you're not taking in minerals at other times and you're drinking at other times, so what's that matter then? And so if that's true, then he has a valid point there. I don't know that answer for sure. I need to verify that. But the biggest thing is don't drink city water. I mean, this water right here is high pH water. I like high pH water. It makes me feel good. This is 10, 9.5. I drink 10 at the house. It goes. It's kind of it goes across these metal plates, and it changes it, and it makes it higher pH. And I just like the way I feel better with it.
You know, when you buy the case of water in plastic, a lot of people talking about the plastic bottles.
Okay, the next question is plastic.
What's the...
When I'm at home, I use a stainless steel water bottle that I'm constantly filling. When I'm on the road, I have to bring these. But you don't want plastic that's been gotten real hot. Also, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put, let's say you like putting essential oils in your water, like you may put peppermint or wild orange or what? Yeah, lemon, whatever. Don't put it in plastic because it melts the plastic, and now you're drinking plastic. So you want to put it in either glass in your mason jar or your stainless steel. Got one more.
Do you have a Kangen water machine in your house?
I just got a Kangen machine, yes. I have another machine at the office, but I just got a Kangen machine. It's high pH. The question is, do you recommend that? I find that when I drink high pH water, I feel a whole lot better. I find other people that I've shared that with, they feel. My brother-in-law had prostate cancer, and he did two things. He prayed, and he drank the high pH water for a year and a half, and that high pH water, that high pH doesn't work well with cancer, and his prostate cancer totally left. And he's been no prostate cancer now for maybe 4 years.
What brand of Kangen machine do you have?
It's just the Kangen machine. That's the brand, Kangen. Mm-hmm. Yes.
The question is, when you put the essential oils or the lemon in the plastic, I mean, does it go into it right away? Is there a certain time frame that you have to, I mean, if you use it, you have to drink it within, what, 10 minutes?
They say it's pretty rapid. It starts deteriorating the plastic.
Oh, just immediately almost?
It's pretty immediate. So the essential oil companies recommend not using their products in any plastic containers.
Okay, thank you.
For your health. Roy, are we out of time? Okay, one last question right here. For those other questions, you can hog tie me out back.
Thank you. The transitional diet that you spoke of, from water fast to juicing to the Duke, are you considering if people are on medication?
Yes, good question. If the people are on blood pressure medicine or diabetic medicine, they've got to treat it, diabetic medicine, like they would sliding scale. And so they monitor their blood sugar. Let's say they're monitoring their blood sugar 4 to 6 times a day. I continue having them do that same amount of time. And if that glucose starts dropping down, and it's getting down, let's say it's in the 80s, call the doc. Say, Doc, my blood sugar, remember it used to run 300, 200? Well, I'm in the 90s, 80s now, and I've changed and I'm doing a different lifestyle, exercising, drinking water, eating healthy food. You want to help me come off this med? And they will. The docs will help them come back. Or let's say they have blood pressure. Their blood pressure, used to be, high, and now it's 102 over 68. And I'll say, if it starts getting low like that, I'll encourage them, call your doc and let them know what you're doing. And they work very well with them to cut back, say cut the pill in half, don't take the pill or whatever.
So in other words, don't start this regimen until you've had your exam and you tell your physician you're doing this so that you can monitor along the way.
Well, most folks aren't going to do that I work with. But what I do encourage them to do is to do that data collection. And once those numbers, and if they want to tell their doc right off, that's perfectly fine. But once that number starts dropping, I tell them, call your doc, or at least call your nurse at the doc's office and say, here's what my blood pressure is doing, here's what my glucose is doing. I don't see it affecting the other meds, but those two they'll bottom out on them. And so once they see those numbers trending down, I have them call the doc or call their nurse and say, I'm trending down, what do you want me to do? Well, let's watch it. Okay, comes on down, they call them back. Okay, yes, I think you need to cut back. So definitely they need to keep in touch with their physician. Okay, Roy, would you close with prayer?
I was going to say a significant amount of people don't even have doctors.
A lot, it's a tough one out there today. Oh, there you go.
Were we all blessed this afternoon? Amen. There is so much that we can learn about the human body. I mean, you just mentioned about water. I did a whole study on water. Did I ever give you that study? I didn't give you that study? Okay. I have to give it to him.
Good.
But just water alone, drinking the wrong kind of water affects you. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned about city water, all the chemicals that are in our water is really harmful to your body. But then again, if that's all you have to drink, then drink it. But you want to be, you want to get the best water you can, like he was talking about.
We have Rolls-Royce bodies, right? Right? God gave us the very best bodies we could possibly ever have. And it depends upon how we treat them, what we put in them, how long they're going to last. Amen? All right, shall we bow our heads for prayer? Heavenly Father, as we come to you, we want to thank you for a wonderful afternoon. We thank you for the message that we heard. We pray, dear Lord, we would take all these different things and go back and study for ourselves to prove what we heard is right, and then follow as your Holy Spirit leads us. Be with us now as we depart. Help us to have a wonderful rest of the afternoon and the Sabbath. Help us to remember to keep the Sabbath holy, for we ask in your name. Amen. Okay, we need to vacate this property by 5 o'clock. So